Hey bourbon fans, I'm Tim the Suburban Dad, here to help you dads find some great bourbon. Today I want to talk about how much should bourbon cost? Now unfortunately there's not a straightforward answer. I've thought about this for a while and tried to pin down kind of a formula that you could use between age and proof and everything, but so far I haven't come up with any conclusion. There's a few factors, however, that definitely are going to influence that. First is age. Let's talk about that. In my opinion, this seems to be a very loosely associated factor. You got some bottles that follow the trend: younger, cheaper; older, more expensive. Because really the age, the longer a bourbon stays in that barrel, that's when the richness and depth of flavor starts to develop, and it really adds a whole nother nuance to your drinking experience. Now, not a guarantee that older is better or younger is worse, but typically the older you go, the more flavor and the more exciting things get. Now, what's a little unusual is you can have a younger bourbon that costs more. I've got this bottle of Booker's from 2020. Yes, it's my favorite batch, so of course I've got a backup for it. This one was only 6 years old and retailed for about 90 bucks. Okay, 6 years old. Of course, the ever popular Eagle Rare, a 10-year-old bourbon, but it's only about 40 bucks retail. That leads us right into my second point of what affects bourbon price, and that is proof point. Booker's, this is over 120 proof. Eagle Rare, this is only 90 proof. Why is higher proof bourbon going to be more expensive? Well, quite simply, there's not going to be as much bourbon going into the bottles. They can't dilute it down. If you're proofing that down to only 90 proof, down from 120 whatever, the more you dilute it, the more you're going to have available. You guys get it. Now this is where it gets complex because again, the older bourbon, there's going to be less of it left in the barrel. There's going to be more that's evaporated to the angel share. So it's why is the price the way it is? It's kind of hard to say for sure. So bottles that are considered barrel proof or barrel strength, as well as full proof, anything that's higher, especially if it's straight out of the barrel, those are going to be more expensive, understandably so, simply because there's just less bourbon available. Oftentimes you'll see too where single barrels are more expensive than small batch, because again, with a small batch you can combine a whole bunch of barrels. They might not have exactly the right flavor profile, but when you combine them together, it gets the desired result. With a single barrel, that's it. Most companies want a fairly consistent single barrel profile, even though the individual barrel is going to be a little bit different. They don't want something wildly off track from where they normally are with their flavors. So again, one barrel, fewer barrels that are close to that track, the less bourbon they have available to get into the bottle. Another example of disjointed relationship between age and proof and price, Elijah Craig's C923, it's 133 proof, it's $70 retail, and it's over 13 years old. Two of those things don't match up. Price should be much higher considering it's over 12 years old, which really I think any bottle over 12 years old, you really get to a special place to where that price starts to jump. So for it to have high proof, and it's old, and for it to be reasonably priced at $70, that's an amazing buy when you think of it. So that's kind of a weird one to me. Another factor affecting bourbon price is the cost of materials. Especially nowadays, so many companies doing finished barrels, whether it's Mizunara or Amburana, or Mongolian oak, or port, you name it. That finishing barrel can be an expensive piece. So it's not surprising that you could see those bottles jump up in price a little bit. Also, the material of the bottle themselves. Going back to Booker's a second, it's not every day your bottle comes in its own little apartment. The bottle itself has extra wax and labels and seals, and of course it comes in this actual wooden case, which is all cool and fancy, and I love it. It's so cool to walk in a store and see one of those and think, oh yeah, there's Booker's. Now that I have a bunch of them, I'm a little past it. I could do without them anymore and drop the price 20 bucks, but you have to admit it's pretty darn cool. Other bottles that are fancy, incurring more price and cost would be Old Fitzgerald. They got that glass decanter, as well as Woodford Baccarat. If you're not familiar with this gem, it retails for about 1,500 bucks, and it's got a crystal bottle. I have no idea how the bourbon tastes, but the presentation is amazing. Now, those are all factors from the distilleries that cause the price to go up. In society, factors like popularity and rarity are what really drive the prices up at your local liquor store, or especially the secondary markets. Even the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection bottles are still retailing for about 150, 180 bucks, and yet secondary is like 1,000 plus. So just goes to show you that scarcity and popularity can really affect that price in the real world, not just, hey, this is what it's supposed to sell for. There you go, bourbon fans. Like I said, I don't have any clear answers or guides to you, but that's why bourbon costs what it does. What's been your best bargain bourbon, and what's been your most expensive bottle that you've ever gotten? Let me know in the comments. Till next time, cheers.